Okay, this should be the last video, and it's going to cover graphics objects. So basically graphics objects are like a wrapper for several different things needed that make rendering things easier. A great explanation on my part. Basically you pair a model with a shader and then whatever things you need for that shader. So in terms of the class structure, they all inherit from this base class, graphic object base, where you can set the model and then you have to implement the render function. Yeah, nothing too interesting here. For texture light, just to start. So for texture light, you have a pointer to the shader texture light, but then you need texture and material and world in order to render a texture light object. So you have different methods for setting all of this, and all of my graphics objects have, you can do different things for different meshes. So you can set the texture for a particular mesh or for the whole thing. You can set the material for a particular mesh, or whatever it may be. So if we go to CBP, pretty self-explanatory. Creating everything, you make everything the default texture. If you set the texture and don't specify a mesh number, you loop through all the different meshes and do the same thing. I do that a lot. You know, if you're not specifying a mesh number, you just do it all the same. Setting material. And then rendering, you just have to set the model to context, loop through each of the meshes, set their corresponding mesh texture to context, set the world and material to context. So the world is the same for all of them, the materials might be different depending on the mesh, and then render the mesh. So yeah, it's the same basic pattern for all of the graphics objects. Just to take a look at texture, so it specifies a shader texture, just a pure texture shader, and then all it needs is the texture and world, so you can set everything and render. Color light has specific color light shader, and it has materials, no textures, and world. Yeah, so the graphics object is just the thing interfacing with the shader more directly, and making things a lot easier, setting your model to context, etc. I don't think I've touched GAM graphic object color in a while, to be honest. So she is a little outdated, but the rest of them are up to date. Yeah, that just about covers graphics objects, and I showed earlier how to use them pretty easily. Once again, we have some warnings. This one I am actually mad about because I don't know what the issue is. It's like some kind of sizing thing with the array, but I don't know why. It clearly works. I'm not going outside the bounds of the array. But whatever. Yeah, that's just about everything. I never tackled the mirror. That is still a theoretical in my mind, but yeah, so I don't have the required mirror, and I obviously didn't have it in the final scene. So, oh well. And yeah, I think that's everything. I should stop talking.